Okay.
Awesome. Well, welcome to our conversation about the ADA. I'm Gina Jawan, and this is Troy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Troy Balthazar. I'm with the Great Plains ADA Center, Americans with Disabilities Act Center at the University of Missouri, and I do some teaching here on campus involving inclusive recreation and universal design and things like that. So.
Excellent.
Thanks.
You do such good things here.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people doing good things at Mizzou, so it's coming along.
I think the main goal here is to figure out what this ADA thing is, what it means.
Right.
And kind of put that in layman's terms.
Sure.
So if you can just explain to us, what is this and what does it imply?
Yeah. Well, the ADA is basically the civil rights law that protects the rights of people with disabilities in state and local government activities, in the operations of businesses, a great many employers, and it applies to applies to everybody pretty much but the federal government and churches. So you've got it's a pretty important piece of legislation for people with disabilities because it guarantees their rights. Both federally and then states, because of constitutional amendments, need to honor the protections. They're the ones covered by the law, and they need to honor the protections and not discriminate against people with disabilities. So having that federal law in place is very important for ensuring access in all parts of the country and in the operations of state and local government, businesses and employment. There's also some other areas, but I'll try to keep it sort of simple.
Yeah.
And so the law, so it's a civil rights legislation that protects the rights of people with disabilities, and basically ensures that when say a university is offering classes, or if a university is offering classes or other types of programs, that those programs are accessible to people with disabilities. They're non-discriminatory. The ADA doesn't call for special treatment. What it does call for is that when we're utilizing public money, for such as that at a state university, when we're using tax-based money, that we make sure that we're not discriminating against anybody for any reason, any protected class at this point. And the ADA brought people with disabilities into that, under that protection.
Okay, great. That's enlightening.
Yeah.
And so as current and future faculty, what do we need to know about this?
Right.
And are there other sort of legal structures that we
Sure.
should be aware of? And what does some of this stuff mean about non-discriminatory and this kind of this nebulous
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in the university environment, I mean, the one thing about the ADA is it permeates all parts of society. It's very far-reaching. So
except for the churches.
Well, that's true. But in that regard too, the ADA, when it comes to individuals, but also situations, is very much taken on a case-by-case basis. So when basically a university has a number of responsibilities, they have obviously employment responsibilities, but when it comes to providing services for students, all student groups, faculty, and the general public, it's considered the university is obviously a public entity, and so our programs need to be accessible here at the University of Missouri. As you know, you may run into a lot of old buildings and a campus as old as ours is. So we do have some inaccessible physical features. But what the ADA really calls for, and what universities are pursuing to meet the law, is to make sure that all their programs are accessible and non-discriminatory. Non-discriminatory means that you as a person with loss of sight can meaningfully participate and have the same materials, the same access to the same information, access to the greatest extent possible to the same experiences your peers are having in class. And that goes for everybody. So it's a wide-ranging responsibility, and it can be tricky at times because the ADA is unlike discrimination against people with disabilities is unique in the sense that as far as accommodating people, as far as being non-discriminatory, a lot of times you have to, it involves a lot of thought. It involves imagination. It involves taking into account what's the fundamental nature of what you're doing as a university, what you're doing as a teacher, what you're doing as whatever, okay? And then taking the fundamental nature of that and applying it on a case-by-case basis to making sure that we're accommodating all of our students, whether they're of different race, different ability level, diverse ability, I think is a good term for that. And so making sure that that our, whatever operations we have, again, whether we're teaching class, whether we're building a new basketball arena, the ADA pushes for that to be equally accessible to everybody, including people with disabilities.
Wow. So
and universal design is obviously
it's
the
a
way
different
to
story.
It's a different story. It's not the
Yeah.
law, but if you can, and I don't know if you're going to get into it at all, and it probably maybe a story for another day, but the idea of universal design, the type of design and development of programs that works for the widest range of users, that doesn't need to be adapted, that doesn't need to be specialized. I mean, that's really the smart way to go for the future, and I think that's the cutting edge of where we're going as far as serving everybody's needs, not just individuals with disabilities.
Indeed. I don't know if you can think of or share a story about an issue that's come up with the ADA in your experience. Doesn't have to be university, but it's interesting. It gets noticed when problems arise.
Sure. Well, I think the heart of the sort of one thing that binds a lot of the issues that I see out there, discrepancies between what's compliant and what's not, what's accessible to people, what's not, what people perceive as the government meeting their requirements. One thing that it comes down to is local governments need to be planning. Universities need to be planning. And it's not just a great idea to plan for your future, it's required under the law. ADA requires that you look at all your programs, okay, and make a self-evaluation of how accessible those programs or how usable those programs are. Again, that standard of program accessibility. So finding where your barriers are. The ADA requires a proactive look at, hey, here's what we've got, okay, here are the barriers that exist, and what do we have to do to remove those programmatic barriers to ensure a non-discriminatory approach, and that we're providing programs that meet the law. That's where we get off the rails, I think, a lot of times, is a lot of places just don't do self-evaluations, transition plans. Some are unaware of them, of the requirement that they do them. Some do them just to have it done. And then some places are active and dynamic in the way they pursue how they will evaluate their barriers and make sure all students can use their facility and that they're not discriminating. Usually that last there type of attitude, it removes all the questions of accessibility. It removes the questions of have they made a good faith effort towards meeting the requirements of the ADA. Well, you know what? It developed, with everybody in mind. They've met the requirement that they evaluate their programs, their systems, their buildings, the way they do things, their policies, and that they're proud that, hopefully proud to be not only compliant, but innovative.
Yeah, that's so excellent. Thank you so much for this.
Sure. My pleasure. Ooh, oh, it's not a touch.